Let's talk about the new Air-King from Rolex that was just announced here at Watches and Wonders 2022. I'm a huge fan of the Air-King. Some of you know that's no secret. I have a history with the model. I accidentally absolutely trashed one. I purchased one years down the road on my birthday. I stupidly flipped it for a Vacheron Constantin overseas. So I have a history with this quirky and rather ugly watch from Rolex. I don't think that's controversial to say. I think most people aren't a fan of the crazy dial and the overall aesthetics of the Air-King, but I am. I think it's awesome. I'm kind of drawn toward the off the beaten path type watches. And in my opinion, this update, this upgrade in 2022, which is 6 years after the original reintroduction of the Air-King, I think it's a better watch in every avenue. In fact, I can't think of anything that I prefer more about the previous gen Air-King that I already really loved. I think this new one is better in every aspect. So let's talk a little bit about the changes. And as we do that, I'm going to state why I think this is a better watch and why I think this is the most exciting announcement from Rolex this year in 2022. I know everyone's talking about, the GMT-Master II that has the left-hand drive orientation of the case and the dial and the movement and whatnot. But man, I'm all about the Air-King. I think this is the most exciting announcement out of what they've done this year. So the big change is not just that it gets the new movement, the 3230, with all of the niceties that we love as watch enthusiasts. I think the big thing here, the thing that we should lead off with, is we have a new case. And it's not just a new case. It's very similar to the Submariner case, which in my opinion is one of the most comfortable and great overall sport cases on the market. It's comfortable, it's thin when it comes to the overall height. It feels refined, it kind of disappears on wrist. And the fact that Rolex, at least to my knowledge, I don't think they've put a polished steel bezel, a fixed bezel, on one of their cases with flat slab sides and crown guards. I don't think they've done that. The closest thing that pops into my mind is the Explorer II, which is larger in 42 millimeter and has a brushed steel fixed bezel with indexing on for the GMT complication. I think this is the first time they've paired their polished steel bezel with this type of case, and it's a unique pairing. I think it's a first. And the fact that Rolex took this first case and bezel pairing and put it with arguably their most out there sports dial that they produce, I think it's fitting, and I think it's awesome. I'm super excited about it. If you look at the old Air-King, it's great. It's endearing because it's kind of fat, it's kind of chunky, it's kind of quirky. It has that ugly dial with the rather thick case that is exactly the same as the Milgauss. It's tall, it's rounded, has a Faraday shield inside. I like that. I thought it was, obviously, I really like that combination, but this new update feels more unique. It feels more refined. It feels more streamlined. It feels more like a sports piece. I think it's Rolex saying that this Air-King is more like a sub. It's more like a GMT. It's more like an Explorer II than it is like an OP or a Milgauss that are a little bit more dressy and pretty, even though they're still professional watches. Well, I guess the OP is a classic watch, but you guys know what I'm trying to say there. So I like the case. I think it's great. I'm excited to see one in person. If you look at the Oyster bracelet, it has more of a cohesive marriage between the end link, the links, and the lugs. It doesn't bump in. It's not a chunky maxi type case. And so I like that aesthetic, that slender curve, that taper I think is aesthetically sharp and balanced. I like the fact that we have the flip lock in the clasp. I like this style of clasp that I have on my Sky Dweller that I'm wearing today. I've never had a failure, but the flip lock is a little bit more secure. So I like the fact that it's now on the Air-King, the updated Air-King. And then let's go in on the dial and take a look at the changes here. There are a couple small changes. The big one is the fact that instead of just applied white gold Arabics, we have loomed applied white gold Arabics. And so this is going to look even better in low light. The previous Air-King was rather laughable because only the triangular marker and the handset were loomed. This is a step in the right direction. Not everything is loomed. That would have been shockingly awesome if we were to see that from Rolex, but I think it's a step in the right direction. It adds functionality in low light or no light situations. So I really like that look visually. And then if you look at the 5, the 1 index, that's now 0.5. So aesthetically, it's more full, more balanced, and less quirky, I guess you could say. So I like the dial. Now, here's another part that I'm really excited about. And it's silly when I think about it because other brands do this so very well, but Rolex has resisted this, but they are advertising anti-reflective treatments on the crystal of the new Air-King, this aviation sports piece. So I'm curious, is this awesome dial with the yellow coronet, the corporate green Rolex logo, and second hand, are we going to see that to a great degree of clarity? Are we going to get light play? Are we going to see reflections? How good is the ARC going to be on this watch? I'm so curious. I can't wait to see. I think Rolex only places anti-reflective treatment on the underside of a Cyclops. If you have a Oyster Perpetual date of some type, I think that's the only time they use it. I could be wrong, but it's not common that they do ARC. And Rolex is rarely the first to do something, but once they decide to do a particular aspect of a watch, they do it really, really well. It's dialed in. And other brands seem to measure themselves against Rolex in terms of how well they're doing. So I guess we'll see how the ARC turns out on the new Air-King. So new movement, new case, it's thinner, it's more sporty, subtle changes on the dial, improved low light lume, anti-reflective treatment on the crystal. It's so good, guys. It's like Rolex is speaking my horological design language with this release, and I would love to buy one whenever that may be. I recognize there's going to be far more demand than there is supply, and that can be very frustrating as a watch enthusiast. So maybe I get one in 2 weeks, maybe I get one in 2 years, maybe I never get one. I don't know. But I love this new release from Rolex. I think it's the best release of the year. I think it's a significant step in the right direction. It's improving the Air-King. And I really hope that in future years, Rolex expands upon the Air-King. Maybe we get a white dial. How cool would that be? White dial, black markers, green and gold. Maybe we get some other iterations of the Air-King in terms of dial work. I think that would be great. What if we got an Oyster Flex? I think, we'd have to see precious metal before that happens. But I'd like to see more Air-King from Rolex. I think it's an awesome release. I hope to get one at some point in the future. Let me know what you guys think of the release. And I appreciate you taking the time to watch today. See you in the next video.